welcome back to another episode of Paranormal the New Normal. I'm your host, as always, Jeremy, here on the Antisocial Network and on Parapl. Wow, I just totally messed that part up. But the Parap. Wow, how am I forgetting the name of it? Right, the Parapost Network. God, sorry, guys. But as always, I'm here to try to make the world seem a little more normal in these hard times. But it's not an easy thing to do, and I brought a guest with me, of course, to try to help me with that. But will that happen tonight? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. It's always fun to find out. But the guest I brought is Nancy Mello, who is a psychic medium and animal communicator, which two of my favorite topics in the world actually put together. So, Nancy, how you doing tonight?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And folks, it was actually a funny mix-up getting Nancy on here, but I'm not going to get into it because it's a long story. But it was a funny mix-up, and oof, but I'm happy I can get her on. So that's always the end goal, and synchronization works in mysterious ways. But first question I ask everybody is, what got you into the paranormal?
I think, truth be told, the paranormal got into me, right? As a child, I could see things and feel things. So it's not about what I got into, it's what I saw and what I felt, right?
Of course. Well, that kind of leads into the second question almost, because the second question is, what experiences have you had in the paranormal?
I was just telling you before the show started, I'm so excited because this isn't something I get to talk a lot about. So I've had such varied experiences, from sounds, electronics, to visions, to just smells. I mean, they talk about the different the psychic senses, and I mean it's across the board. But I think it's cool, from real synchronicity, like kind of what happened with us, to, I mean, just off the wall, really cool stuff. So I'm all about it. Ever since I was a child, I was fascinated. I grew up Catholic, like so many of us did. And, you start to question, like, when they say, well, this is the way it is. And like, I could clearly see it was different. So that's what was cool to me, is like, you grew up in a small town. I know both of us are in New England now. I grew up in a small town in Northern California. And it's like, you didn't go outside the box. So I love the fact that you are even doing this and talking about things outside the box, because I think this is something that a lot of us feel, and it's great to be validated.
Exactly. And it's funny how often people say, like, your show name is great because it's literally becoming the truth over the last 5-10 years. Like, it's becoming the new normal.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I mean, it's a great thing. It really is. And it's funny because growing up, I had no paranormal experiences growing up until I was in my late 20s. So I just loved reading about it, and the idea of big furry hominid creatures walking in the woods always kind of mystified me and made me want to believe. So
yeah,
plus,
like
plus
Blair Witch Project kind of stuff, which was scary as hell. I wouldn't recommend. If you haven't seen that movie, you don't need to watch it. I mean, it was just, but yeah, Blair Witch Project stuff, right?
Oh yeah, there's actually a Bigfoot version movie. There's a Bigfoot style movie of the Blair Witch Project, but done by Bobcat Goldthwait.
Oh God, I have to watch it now. Police Academy, like Bobcat.
Yeah.
Got him. Yeah.
He directed it. It's done Blair Witch style. It's freaking amazing.
I
forget what it's called, but it's the ending is. But yeah, okay. No spoilers though. So
okay.
You said you saw things when you were younger.
Yeah.
What did you see? What were you seeing? Was it spirits or?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, like, I would see, like, my mom had this old mirror, and God, I always told her to take it down, and she never did. And that's probably one of those things I need to write down, stuff to talk to your parents about when you're in the middle age, of crap that happened when you were a child and you're asking why. When you finally become emotionally mature and you're wondering why crap happened. I literally, like, every couple of months, I'm like, Mom, why did this happen? But no, my mom had this old mirror, and I haven't thought about this in decades. My mom had this mirror, and like, I would stare at it, and I'm not even kidding, like, an image would come forth, and it was like a woman in like white and a veil. And I'll never forget, like, I told my friend, and I was like 8 or 9, and the mirror would tap at me, like, and only me. and it would tap. So it was like, here's the camera, and it would like, you'd stare at it and it would start tapping, tap, tap, tap. And I had a friend that verified it, and she went home, and of course, like, her parents were like, "No, that's not possible. It's the room changing." And then also, so like, I would see that, and I would see, it was like, it was very, it's probably the way that people describe ghosts. It's so funny because I remember being in First Communion or Catechism or whatever, and growing up Catholic, and I remember they were like, the nuns would say, "Oh, if you ask Jesus to visit you, he'll visit you." And I remember praying every single night, "Jesus, don't visit me. I don't want to see you. It would scare me. Don't visit me." No, because I had those experiences before, but from what I recall, they were very ghost-like, very veil-like, but it was generally women. So I grew up, I grew up 7 miles from the nearest small town in Northern California, in the country, like country, and my dad still farms this day, and you would there were things in the orchards that you would think you would see things moving through, and it was really interesting. And I don't have a lot of information this day, but I know that, like, Native Americans used to go through there, and they would still find, even when I was younger, like, arrowheads and stuff. And so I remember assuming that that was more of a Native American thing, or maybe knowing it was more of a Native American thing that I was feeling, and it wasn't ever scary. It was just, it was more alarming, but I didn't feel like they were trying to hurt me. That mirror thing was, ugh, like, that was just like, because no one else could see it. And I was just like, as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, you're just like, what is going on?
Well, I mean, kids are, of course, more sensitive, more open to those type of
Yeah.
things to
Oh yeah.
begin with, and mirrors are a portal into our world from another
Oh yeah.
dimension. So,
Yeah. I still, I will put on my big girl pants and sleep with one in a hotel if I have to, but I don't sleep with a mirror in my room to this day. And it's not that, I think there's anything bad, but it's just, I don't, I can't do it.
I'm instinctively looking in the mirror to the left of me every time you say
Yeah.
that. But I mean, I am not sensitive to this stuff, to spirits at all. I have two of them living in my house at least. I I thought it was only two, but the amount of ghost lights I saw in my garage on camera last night kind of made me think, what the heck
Well,
is going on in my, I'm like, is there a portal in my garage? What the heck? But
just be
like,
passing through. Might be just passing through.
it's weird. I mean, because there's always like one or two flying around out there, but at night
Yeah.
our camera catches it all the time. But
Nice.
last night there was like, it looked like someone released like bubbles in the garage almost. There were so many.
Wow. Wow. That'd be cool
I
to
thought
investigate a little bit.
I put up my TikTok and my Facebook, but it's
I'll
weird.
have to check it out. That's cool. Yeah.
And I mean, I was just like, guys, should I be worried? Like, am I about to get invaded poltergeist style? But
I don't think so. I think it's just energy. A lot of times when and this is like, I'll putting on my psychic hat, evidential medium hat. Like, a lot of times when you see that, it's energy passing through, right? Like, just because you see stuff like that doesn't mean it has to be bad. It's just, especially again, going with us in New England, like, things are, we have a lot of history here, and a lot of history with people living here for the last 400 years. So sure, you're going to get a lot of just energy kind of passing through.
yeah, I mean, it's strange. Which actually, I was thinking the farm that you said you
Mhm,
grew up on.
mhm.
Did you ever find out if it was maybe it was a Native American burial ground nearby?
So that's the thing. Like, and my dad is still Catholic to this day, and I'm sure if I tried to talk about it, like, they still, like, my dad's family has not acknowledged I do any of this crap. So I mean, not crap, but you know what I mean. Like, they still. So I remember there was like rumors, and I'm sure if I talk to my dad now, considering I don't know. I just remember there was talk of it. There was talk of like finding stuff. But the challenge is that, and to this day, the house I grew up in it's on a floodplain. And actually, I think it just flooded in the last month with the rains through Northern California. And so it would just flood every so often. And I think that's why the Native Americans would come through. And so it would bring stuff up. So when we had a couple of floods in my childhood, it would always bring stuff to the surface. So was there a burial ground? I remember there was rumors of it, but I'm always very much like, I want to prove it. I just remember specifically the arrowheads and finding, like, and I remember like my mom talking about there was pottery, but it's one of like little pieces and shards of things. I don't think it was ever proven though.
Well, I mean, honestly, and I mean, especially out here in New England, you could walk
Oh
a
my god.
mile and find a Native American burial ground. Like that's just the way it is.
Oh
But
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
my
Like it's
the house that my wife was living in when I met her with her family house, it is in the Bridgewater Triangle on the edge of the Bridgewater Triangle, and it literally is built on Native American burial ground. Like they proved it, almost
yeah.
like a poltergeist type thing where they moved the headstones but didn't move the bodies. So
Well, and that's the thing, like when we moved into this house, so I'm on the shoreline in Eastern Connecticut, right on the border of Connecticut and Rhode Island. And I remember like having to verify before we purchased this house. Like I had to go through and really feel it because if I felt anything gnarly, hell no. I mean, it's one thing to do this for a living and work with people, but like I don't want it in my house all the time. So, and still we've had a few little things here and there, but mainly for like, because of what I do, it's kind of sometimes it'll transfer over, like, but nothing major, but I definitely had to walk through. And it's interesting because I think my kids are picking up on the energy around the area more than because I'm just like, I've got to work, like I've got to be like I can't, you know, if I'm going to do my job effectively and well in helping others and helping people and pets, I've got to really, not want to explore the boondocks of my area.
yeah, I mean, it's always fun to explore things. At least I've been
Oh yeah,
told. I'm not. I mean, I'm forced to go in the woods and hike, so I always try to go places where I know there's Bigfoot activity because I want to try to see one, but
yeah.
never do. But I always want to. But
I always like on our hikes here, I always love when we see headstones, and you'll see on hikes, especially in the state parks here, you'll come across an older graveyard. And that's I always want to go and respectfully like check it out. And it's really neat just to read the headstones and see the stories. I to me it's so neat. It's so fascinating to really feel the history in real time
of
here.
course, of course. I mean, I mean, the Northeast in general is just so there's so much history here that it's just so many spirits everywhere. I mean, every state has at least 10 paranormal investigative teams just they keep busy. They keep busy.
Well, and the cool thing about up here, you have, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island is this was also American Revolution. And so you have battles that were fought. So you have Native American energy, and then you've got American Revolution. And then, in some parts of the state, you've got Civil War was kind of a little less so up here, but you've got American
Yeah.
Revolution. So you've got revolution. And like I know for a fact that the area that we live in now, that American soldiers came through here after a battle. So I know that. So it's like sometimes if I feel an energy, I'm like, oh, that's probably just kind of, again, passing through. But so you've got, again, history on top of history on top of history.
I mean, the War of 1812 too, as well. But and
Yeah.
because I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I grew up in Kingston, New York, which
Yeah.
was burnt during the War of 1812 by the British.
Yeah.
So I mean, they did reenactments every summer in Kingston, but it's just it's so much history, so much freaking history. It's not
Well,
even
and it's
funny.
even fascinating. Like my spouse and I just went out. Again, we're on like the border of Rhode Island, Connecticut, and we did a hike out in Rhode Island, and we came across an old World War II like lookout because and it was like abandoned, but it still has like the walls and stuff because during that time they were trying to protect the coast, and up into Maine too. You'll see these lookouts, which is really cool. So again, it's like you've just got so much stuff up here. And again, for someone that growing up in California, where I love our history with Native Americans, and then Mexico, which was California used to be, is really
Yeah,
cool. But it's a lot more documented out here. It's just neat.
yeah. I mean, it is like the Northeast, the whole East Coast really is more like the most history in the United States is on the East Coast because it was 100 years before people started going out west more to try
Yeah.
to settle it.
So
So
what's really cool though is I'm a big American history buff, and when my spouse and I drove across country about 13 years ago, I like if you like follow the Oregon Trail, you can still feel like the energy of westward expansion travelers. Like there are parts that we drove through. If you go like along what is now Highway 80, and there's some dark, like not dark as in like evil, but just real tragic lots of tragedy, so that's another thing is like you have like all this history up here and on the East Coast, but then with westward expansion, I mean, you're talking about, scores and scores of people that didn't make it, and that things that happened, and Native American attacks, and blah, 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 blah. And it's all just across. So it's cool that you could really go anywhere in this country alone and feel that, and just kind of get a sense. But what's really neat for me is going over to Europe. And if you ever get the chance to go to Europe, I always say, like, take a history walk, take a ghost walk, because now, I mean, talk about history. Our country is such a baby compared to like England, for instance. Like, go to London and they have some of the best ghost walks and some of the best, like no kidding, like things that are documented that are still happening, hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Europe is on my bucket list. 100% it's on my bucket list. It's once the kids are older and out of the house, then maybe me and the wife can go there and enjoy it. I'm not paying for the kids to go there because they would just ruin my vacation. But
see, I love it. I love it. Like, the best piece of advice I got before we had kids was do what you guys normally do, and the kids will fall in line. They'll think it's normal. And so we've traveled everywhere with our kids. So our kids have been to England a few times, and I think it's really interesting to see it through their eyes. And sometimes they'll pick up on stuff. And talking of like a paranormal feeling, like they definitely pick up on energy. And I think that's what's really neat is like you go to Ireland and you're talking about sprites and fairies, and there's a lot of cool things over in Ireland that, I mean, there's no question that there are things over there. So, and even like my daughter was born in Hawaii. We're a military family, and over in Hawaii they have the Menehunes. And I remember when I first went to Hawaii, I'm like, okay, Menehunes, yeah, whatever. Okay, sure. And it's like a little water elf or a little elf, and they say it causes mischief. And you start realizing that there's an energy in the Hawaiian Islands that is very mischief making. And by the end, like, we were there 5 years, and I'm so grateful for our time there. But by the end, I was like, yes, there. And even like, we'll still talk about it now when something goes missing. I'm like, it's the Menehunes, because there is a separate energy over there. So it's really cool. You can go anywhere in the world, and they have their own separate beliefs, but there always seems to be a belief of a different type of energy that exists outside of us. So it's just about, they may be calling it a different name, but is this kind of the same stuff that's just all over and we're just calling it different? Or are there individual entities or individual kind of,
well, I mean, Loki had a lot of children, so they could be everywhere. But that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
But I mean, see, I think of Hawaii, I think of the night marchers.
Yeah. It's, I really, so we lived on Oahu, but we were able to island hop, and I really felt a deep connection to the Big Island, which is Hawaii. And I remember the first time we went there, and they talk about Pele, and that, like, you don't take anything from Pele, like you don't take anything or something will happen. And I remember just going, oh, okay, I won't do it. But I remember like definitely feeling a very strong feminine energy on the island, of definitely a feminine, real strength. And so you're talking about nightwalkers, and I feel like a lot of goodness, like a lot of just beauty. And we end up going back to the Big Island 3 or 4 times, and just being on that volcanic, because it's still an active volcano, and being on top, there's something it's a real beautiful, like, goddess energy. And it would be interesting for your viewers and your watchers that if they've had experiences there, because I know a lot of people that they're very straight as an arrow, and they go and they're like, there's something there, but it's good and it's supportive. And it's like, if you respect me, if you respect the Aina, if you respect the land, welcome. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. And as far as I've heard stories of people who've taken rocks from like the Big Island and whatnot where you're not supposed to, and it's like Robert the Doll. Like when you take a picture of him, like it's the same thing. Like people write letters to the Hawaii forestry people all the time, like mailing rocks back and like, sorry I took this, please make it stop bothering me.
Well, and I don't even think of it like it. I remember, like, from a tourist perspective, I don't think it's like a punishment, but it's very much respect the land, right? Respect us. respect us. And I feel like that's what Pele asked for, is just respect and honor. And I think it's something that we can all take back in wherever we are in the world, is to just to respect the land that we're on, right? Like, it's one thing to take like a seashell that's kind of been abandoned on the shore, and it's another thing
Yeah.
to take 100 of them, right? It's like, respect where you are. And I think that's why, and because the Hawaiians have done such a wonderful job of honoring her and having really honoring those beliefs, I feel like she's continuing to thrive. But yeah, I would not recommend taking anything.
No, I mean, yeah, like I said, same as I wouldn't recommend taking pictures of Robert the doll without his permission, of course.
Yeah, do not want.
No.
Yeah. No.
Dolls that move creep me out, but 100%. So
yeah.
Let's go. So, as a psychic medium, what's the most bizarre thing that you've dealt with when doing work for clients?
I wouldn't say bizarre. I'd say cool. I like to say cool because it is really cool.
Respect.
Okay, so I've had a few things. So if you want to separate this into like ghosts, like earthbounds, and then just energy, do you want to do it that way? So
Whatever
with
you're
just
comfortable with.
with people that have passed over, I think one of the coolest things, I've had a lot of cool things happen with people that have passed over, and I feel like it happens really on a weekly basis with my clients. But the one most memorable, and I've worked with their entire family, and it was just such an honor. I've worked with like 6 or 7 members of the family. And I remember I actually flew out to Chicago, and I was working with this family, and I chatted with this gentleman who had passed, and his widow was kind of the last person I was speaking to. And I was talking to her in person. I'll never forget, my phone was down here and it was just sitting down, and she just said, "I just want a sign that he's here." And immediately my phone goes, "I'm here." And we just stopped, and like we were quiet for like 30 seconds. Oh, okay. All right. You're here. Like, but it was just clear. "I'm here." And it was Siri's voice, but it was just okay. But this guy had done really cool. Like, every person I talked to about him, like, he came through so strong and was doing things. Another time I was working with a client over Zoom, and her mom was like, "I don't want to talk about this anymore." She kept saying, "I don't want to talk about it." And then her and I were kind of like still talking about it. And she kept saying, "I don't want to talk about this." And the last time she said it, boom, she closed Zoom. Whole Zoom shut down. Now but that's honestly, that's pretty normal for me. Like that's pretty normal. Like, I don't get freaked out about stuff like that. Just the other day, a gentleman, again, the daughter was saying, I just want a sign from him. And I've never seen this on a Zoom, but all of a sudden the Zoom went into like multicolored, and it gave us copies. Like, all of a sudden there was double of both of us, and it was, and the energy. And I was like, "There's your sign." One of the coolest things, so I do free questions answered on Friday nights on Instagram. It's Nancy Mello Official is my Instagram name, but I like to, that's kind of my give back, right? You can book a session, but I want to be able to reach everyone. And I'll never forget this. This happened last summer. And I was talking to someone from my hometown in Sacramento, California, and pretty normal night, right? But this woman was asking about, there was an energy in the house, and I had a light right here above my computer, and I think that was it. And I said, all I saw was like a man with a hat. And all of a sudden I said, "I don't like this energy." And as soon as I said that, apparently a shadow crossed behind me and my light went out. Like, the light blew out. And I was in, like, you could see the light of and I still had, like, it was from, it's like on TikTok, but it was like the light blew out, and people said, if you look back, there's a shadow that crosses right behind me. Cause he was no bueno. He was not good. And he crosses, boom. And everyone was just like, "Holy," and that's when I got pissed. Like, cause I work with her. So it's like, even I'm getting like goosebumps right now, even talking about it. And I was like, "Get the hell out of my room. You are not allowed here." I was like, "I don't like this. Get the hell away." And I could just hear him saying, "Stop talking. Stop talking. I don't want you on anymore. You are not allowed to talk about me." And I said, And all of a sudden I got exhausted. Like, he affected me physically. I felt run down, and I could just hear him saying, "You need to stop." And I got pissed off, and I was like, "You don't tell me what to do. Get the hell out of here." Bah, 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 bah. And meanwhile, people are not understanding what's going on. I had like 50 people on the live, and people are asking, and I'm going, hold on, because I felt, all of a sudden I felt dizzy. Like, he went through me. I could feel it. And that has happened only a few times, but I felt him just go woof. And I kept going. But I will tell you, like, people still talk. Like, I have a bunch of regulars that are on Friday nights, and every once in a while someone will say, "Remember that time?" Yes. And the person that asked still comes on almost weekly, which is cool. So that, as far as like earthbound ghost activity, that was freaking nuts, because I'm over here in Connecticut and she's in California. And the fact that, all she was doing was like, "What's going on? I'm feeling this energy." And I was just checking, like, right. I wasn't trying to threaten him. I wasn't trying to tell him to go to the light. Like, I wasn't trying to mess with him. All I was trying to do was see who he was. That's all I was trying to do. But it was bad. Like, I could just see the hat, and I could see him like this and dark eyes. And he just said, "You are not," like, I don't know if it wasn't allowed, but "You're not, you can't do this. You shouldn't be doing this. Get off." And it was,
now everybody, there's a lot of talk these days about the Hat Man phenomenon, which is like basically a shadow person who looks like he's wearing a old school.
Maybe this was someone. I mean, it could be. I haven't heard of it, so I mean, it would be interesting to look it up. I will tell you though, like, that was legit. And so I posted on TikTok, and people are like, "Oh, I don't see your hand in the video," because I was doing like a live on my phone. "I don't see your hand in the photo. You must have turned off the light with your hand." And I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Like, do you really think I'm gonna, like, you think I'm gonna make this crap up? Like, you really think I'm gonna do this for likes? Like, no." And you can see, like, and I was saying, like, you clearly see my reaction as I'm startled, because the light blue, and I was like, again, clear reaction. But people are like, "You just turned off the light." I'm like, "Yeah, okay. All right, sure. Whatever." Because because people don't want to believe that crap happens, right?
Yeah,
Even from my perspective.
The skeptics can be horrible online. It's
And and what I like to advocate for is, not every energy is like that, right? Like, I grew up and I had imaginary friends. I had energies around me that were clearly not my guides and clearly not loved ones. They were just people around. I mean, so it doesn't have to be bad. That's one of the most gnarly things that's the most gnarly thing that's happened on air. But I don't know if it was a couple summers ago. I was working with a couple in an old farmhouse in Connecticut, just west of here. And it was a kid that was just messing around, and he had died tragically. He had died breaking his neck on a horse, something like that.
Oh.
And which is common for the day, honestly, like, and he hadn't left yet, and he was very lonely. The happy end of the story is he couldn't read. He could barely read. And so they actually got him kids books and like put them out, because he was messing with things at night. He was like, but he was bored. So they gave him like little picture books, which he liked, and he was moving around. But what was crazy is during the call and after, he started affecting my phone. He started typing on my phone. So I get off the phone, I'm working with him, and I could feel that he was clearly very interested in the fact that I was working with him. He's like, "Who are you? What are you doing?" Very childlike. But he starts typing on my phone, like type. And I had to be like, "Knock it off. I don't, you can go back to your other place." Like, that's why it's like, as a medium, I have to be so careful of, like, we we're talking about in the beginning, like, I have to be so careful of calling energy that may be around here in, because I need it to be clear for the work I do. But dude, like, this kid was just clearly messing around. Was he a threat? No, but it was clearly like, I had to keep telling him, like, knock it off. Like, because he was messing with my phone. And then he saw I had kids, so he was very interested in staying around. And I had to be like, I finally texted my clients and said, "You have to call him back, because he still wants to hang out." So, but as far as like energy, like, as far as like people that have passed that are just showing signs, I mean, playing with Zoom is the main thing that I'll get, disconnecting or playing music during a call. It's they like to mess with my phone a lot. They'll ring it, or they'll do a ding on my phone. They like to play music. but the main thing is really the lights and the zoom. Like I think entities love Zoom or love the video because there's so many different ways you can mess with it. You can mess with the light, you can mess with the sound. And I've had past loved ones that will just keep messing with it. Like, especially those that were already like very funny in life, like the practical jokers. Oh, they'll mess with everything just because they can. Like a lot of times, especially in the newest Zoom download or the update, like there's a hand raise feature, but you can do it by like raising your hand and they'll keep messing with it. So they'll keep raising hand, raising hand, raising hand. And at some point I just go, stop it, stop it, stop it. Like, I know you're here. Stop it. I can hear you. Let me hear you. I know you're playing. I know you're trying to show your loved one that you're here, but let me hear you and give the messages, right? Like, it's okay to play with the Zoom, but let's work.
Exactly, which it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, especially if it's an older spirit who wasn't around when this great device of the internet was around, even because then it's just they're more curious about than anything.
Well, especially kids, younger kids tend to really, and it happens, but little kids will definitely like to play with it. But I've even found, like, I've talked to people that have passed recently, they so the people that have passed recently, if they were practical jokers, they will mess. What I've seen a lot lately is messing with playlists. Like playlists, they will mess with, especially like there was a guy not too long ago that passed rather suddenly, and he had this group of friends, like this lifelong group of friends, and he was messing with their playlist, and he was putting songs on there that he knew shouldn't be there, just to mess with them. And he was just that kind of guy. And it took me talking with the spouse, and I think that the guy was there kind of begrudgingly. Okay, my wife's making me do this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, he's changing your songs. And he's like, I knew it. What the hell? I'm getting all these songs, because he knew he could mess with them. So a lot of times, at least lately, they're messing with playlists. They like to mess with like DVRs. I've seen that too. I had a grandma over last weekend that in life, she would always tell their kids to turn off the TV when it wasn't in use. And she loved her soaps. And so I guess since she's passed, she's been turning off the TV. So like someone will stand up and the TV will turn off. Like, hey, turn it off. Or she'll randomly put it on like a drama. So it's stuff like that I just love, though, because if your loved one was, if your loved one was always about saving power, then are they more likely to mess with the lights? Yes. If you have someone that was just a practical joker, it's not outside the box to mess with a playlist and put on, My Heart Will Go On if you listen to gangster rap, right? It's like, I love it, though. It's for me, it's confirmation. I call it the aha moment in a session, when it's like, that's what's been going on, right? That's why it's been happening. And it's never scary. It's always just more obnoxious. I've just gotten so used to it, though. Like, it doesn't even, things will happen and I just go, my phone goes off. And it's, I don't know, you just become accustomed. And if it happens, it doesn't seem to startle me. But I love it. But ghosts are the most obnoxious. And I will work with them if someone needs my help, especially up here. I try and do what I can. But they can be very persistent, because loved ones, they want, they'll mess with your playlist and then they go, here, you got the message, I'm here. And then they're done. And ghosts will just hammer you and hammer you and hammer you. And you're like, what the F? Come on. Like, they don't have that respect or those boundaries that your loved ones seem to have.
Yeah, which makes sense. And it makes me think of my old days at the last job I had, where I used to, well, 2 jobs ago, we used to have all these temps come in that were friends of the owner during the summer. Like when they were home from college, they would work in the warehouse doing random things. And they would have their Spotify playlist playing on one computer, but leave it open on another computer too. So yeah. I'd be on the computer doing inventory or something, and I would just be like, oh, their playlist is open. Barney theme song. Play. Just to mess with them. Like, like 30 seconds later, you hear like all the way on the other side of the warehouse, what the fuck? Who did this? It's just like, oh God. if I'm a ghost in the afterlife, I will mess with people so bad like that. I'm just saying, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's always people that have passed over. It's always going to be something that resonates with them, right? It's always that's how I usually say it. And signs like that, like things like that, aren't glitter, right? Don't expect it every freaking day. It's cool when it happens, but don't be like, why haven't they sent me a sign? You know, it just when it happens, it's awesome, but it's usually one, and then maybe they'll send another sign. Sometimes it's all the time, especially if they're trying to send a message, but usually that's more earthbound. That's just hammer,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really am grateful that I get to I have the best job in the world. I love working with pets. I love working with people, and I love the fact that we can kind of dispel some of these myths and really validate that life goes on after this. Not just for people, but for pets. That this isn't the ending for us, and that's what I love.
Which that's perfect crossing over point, because I actually wanted to start talking. I actually wanted to bring up the pets thing and talk
Yeah.
about that for a while, because you would be well, okay. Let me ask you: do you deal with pets that have passed, or do you deal with pets that are still alive?
Everything. Pets.
Okay.
That's the passing. Pets in hospice. Pets that are passing. Yeah. Past pets. Yeah. I deal with it all.
Okay,
Pets.
because
Yeah.
I've had one pet psychic who deals with past pets, and I've had one that deals with a live pet. So it's kind of cool to have a before and after, and now have both in one. It's kind of like a cool.
Yeah,
And,
I deal with whatever's called to me. Whatever someone needs.
So, is there any specific animals you work with, or is it just any animal that people want to work with?
I've worked with everything from geckos to bearded dragons to I've worked with fish. I've worked with squirrels. I've worked with tarantulas, cats, dogs. So I work with it all. Whatever you would snakes. I've worked with quite a few snakes, tortoises, turtles. So cold-blooded and warm-blooded alike. I've worked with an elephant, which I was so grateful to work with. It was an elephant trainer, and that was really cool. Skinks. Ferrets. Yeah. I've had the opportunity to work with many, many types of animals.
I was saying that's a variety and a half right there of animals.
Yeah, I'm just thinking
well, since you said this, and something can resonate in my mind, since you said it. The last person I talked to, when I asked them if they work with snakes, because I've always had like a phobia of snakes since I was young, because my mother and my grandmother were, and a lot of other female family members were petrified of snakes, and they kind of instilled that in me from a young age. So until like 10 years ago, I was petrified of snakes. Couldn't even watch them on TV without like getting sweaty and freezing up. But now it's gotten better. I still don't want to see one out in my backyard, but I'll watch them on TV with no issue. But I was told by the last person that I talked to about it that snakes don't really have much of a mind. It's just kind of like they have a predatory mind where it's just constantly like eat and then sleep, or just kind of relax.
So what I find is, when you have tarantulas, any kind of smaller brained, if you will, I get a lot more images, right? So I've worked with missing pets, and I'll work with a missing snake, and it'll be like, okay, where are you? Okay, I can see the area. So I get a lot more images. Do you recognize your owner? And it'll be very single worded. Do you recognize your owner? Yes. What do you need? And they'll show me an image of what they need as opposed to a word. When you get up in more higher intelligence beings, and this isn't to be condescending about any animal or pet, because I think they all have worth and value. So cats and dogs, I get both. I get images and words. Horses, I think horses and pigs. So what science has found is the higher intelligence beings that I've had the biggest or the more intellectual conversations. So for instance, horses are incredibly dynamic. They definitely have conversation skills, if you will. They can show me not just images and words, but real emotion. Same thing with cats and dogs. They can definitely relate to emotion and have that empathy. So it's also about empathy. I've found, I worked with a fish and a snail, actually, a fish and a snail that were in a tank together. And there was things I did not know about this fish and the snail, just how they ate, how they interacted. And it was interesting though, because well, I wasn't getting words, I was getting images, but I was definitely getting like an understanding of belonging and love. So even smaller brain animals, chickens have an incredible amount of bonding
Oh,
ability.
I
Super
have. Well,
interesting.
I don't have. My wife has about 30 chickens, and
Do
she
you have
wants.
silkies? What kind of chicken? Are they silkies?
Oh, we've. She has a lot of different types of chickens. She's more the chicken person than I am, but we had a silky rooster,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I
a couple months ago he got taken out by a bird of prey.
Oh no. Yeah, no,
But
so chickens are amazing. Like chickens are so
they
hysterical.
are like literally. I was on a conference meeting for my work because I worked from home for the last 6 months before I got let go, well laid off. But and literally like right when I first got the job, one day I'm sitting at my computer at a meeting with my boss and all the other managers in my district in my region, and this chicken that we have, Red, hops in the house following my wife, and all of a sudden flies up and jumps in my lap while I'm in a Zoom meeting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they know.
And
I mean,
I'm like petting her and I'm like trying to hold her to like put her back out the door. And my manager's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "A chicken who thinks it's a house chicken." And like
yeah.
everybody starts dying laughing. But like
I had
chickens are smart.
I had a client that had a chicken named Mama, and I remember this because it was just so profound. And she had a best friend that was a dog, and the dog passes, and then Mama, the chicken, decides to just pass within 3 days. They were best friends for life. And that was it. Chickens are highly emotional. I have a client that's turned into a good friend, and she has a bunch of silkies. And if you go on my Instagram, on my Instagram, TikTok, I have like a picture like holding him, and they are hysterical because they recognize me, and so I go over there now, and they always ask for their worms, and it's the little dried worms, and at first, or
Yeah.
the little, I forget what they showed me, like little like lines, and I kept saying to my friend, they're showing me these lines, and they want the lines, and she's like, they want the mealworms. But every time I go over there now, they know that they can ask for things, so I'll just walk outside, and they'll be like, we want to go outside. We want to go outside. We don't want, so I'll hear it. So chickens are amazing. I would have chickens if I could. I actually grew up with 3 pigs, Smoker, Joker, and Poker. And pigs those were their names. And they were so highly intelligent. And it was interesting though, because they seem to emotionally understand. And I found this when I went whale watching, and I had this beautifully profound experience with a humpback. And it's like when you get to a higher intelligence level, at least in my experience as an animal communicator, you get to a point where it's not even words, it's just emotion and understanding. And these pigs, they were my friends. I mean, again, I was on a farm, and I would just cuddle with them, and they seemed to understand that I was lonely, that I needed them, and they took care of me, and they kind of put me in their little circle. So I don't want to say, I don't want to discount snakes as far as their intelligence or their emotional capacity, because I've seen snakes with a layer of emotional capacity, that where they do understand their owner, or they do identify their owners, that they do understand that their owners are there to help them, to feed them, and they are perfectly happy in their area. I don't like to call it a cage, but in their area, being fed. So that's always my priority, is are these animals, are they happy? Are they safe? And obviously, if you're talking to me about your snake, you clearly adore it. I have a client that has tarantulas, and these tarantulas recognize her, and they again have this innate understanding. Now, how is that possible with their brain? I'm not sure. It would be fascinating to try and understand more of that, but I've seen it. So that's why I don't like to discount anything. I mean, is it a different type of communication with snakes and um, fish? 100%, it's a different type of communication, but they understand. I was actually on a trip in December, and we went to an aquarium. My son loves aquariums, and I forget what kind of animal it was, and I think, again, everything's on my TikTok apparently, but I share a lot, and it was this, I forget what kind of fish it was, but I remember, just without even thinking about it, I just went up and I was talking to it. Oh, look how pretty you are. You're so pretty. And the fish came up to me, and it just seemed to understand that, yes, I was talking to it, and yes, it was positive. it was a positive interaction. And it started just like spinning around as I was talking to it. Like it really seemed to understand. Did it understand every word? Absolutely not. But it understood that I was talking to it and it was good. So, I feel like I'm such a baby in my understanding
Well,
of
who wouldn't be? I mean, we don't. We only know what science tells us by the brain size, like literally the brain size. Like that's all we can know is the brain size. Which, I mean, I would love to have you talk to a squid, like a giant squid, because
Mhm.
if that was possible, because
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, it would be a different type of conversation, but yeah, and that's
because
what I
they're supposed to be the
go ahead.
most intelligent creatures, like close to humans. But
Yeah. Well, and I will never forget this experience I had with a whale was just I mean, it was life-changing. I'm not trying to be dramatic when I say that, but we were on a whale watching trip actually off the coast of Plymouth. And we're looking at humpback whales and there was whales in the area and everyone's looking and I just happened to be hanging out on the side of the boat kind of looking down and all of a sudden I look down and there's an eye staring back at me. And I was like, and again, no one saw it because it's underwater and it's looking up at me and I'm looking down at it. And it felt like an hour that I was just staring at it and it was staring at me. And again, no one was around me. Everyone's looking on the other side of the boat and it's staring at me. And I just remember feeling this complete understanding that they understood what humans were doing and they didn't blame us. Like it wasn't like, how dare you ruin our ecosystem? It wasn't how dare you. There wasn't like a blame. There was like a kind of an underlying sadness, but it was very much, I understand. I understand what's going on. And I also understand that you understand me. And it was like so much was said in it was probably no more than 30 seconds or a minute. And all of a sudden, someone saw this, but it was probably just under the water and someone saw and ran and then it was gone. But it was just, I understand what's going on in the world. I understand that, some people are good, some people are bad. There wasn't any blame, but it was also like it was this interconnectedness. So when some people say there's an interconnectedness of all beings, that in that moment I understood it, that there was something there and it was just the most amazing. I mean, it was so profound to understand that in spite of everything that we do as humans, that I tell people, they'll say, oh, does my cat blame me for this? Does my dog blame me for this? And honestly, I haven't come across an animal that has blamed their owner or blamed someone for doing something. They can feel sad. They'll feel sad or they'll feel misunderstood, but there's not a blame. And I felt that with this humpback whale. It was like, I'm not blaming you for the fact that the ocean's polluted. It was, I have this understanding somehow, some way, that there are people that are trying to help, that there is good. And almost
well,
again, that balance of good and evil.
I mean, whales are highly intelligent. Everybody knows
Oh
that.
yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
but before we wrap up, though, because I do have to be on I have to guest on a podcast at 7. But before we wrap up, though, I'm dying to hear about the elephant.
The elephant.
Because I mean, I'm an animal lover. I love going to zoos from when I was a little kid till today. Like, if you ever want to go to the Southwick Zoo, I'll bring my family. You bring yours. We can make a podcast thing out of it. But
Deal. I'm all about it. So what's really crazy coincidental about this is that I lived in Hawaii for 5 years, and this woman contacts me out of the blue, and I don't have anything on my website that says I lived in Hawaii, nothing like that. And when I was there, my daughter was born, and we would go to the Honolulu Zoo a couple times a month, like at least. I mean, we were always there with something we could do with my spouse out at sea, easy, right? So I had been there not hundreds of times, probably at least 50 times. So this woman contacts me out of the blue from Oahu, and she has a bunch of dogs, blah, blah, blah. No big deal. So I'm working with her dogs and stuff. And then she says, well, can I ask you about an animal I work with? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And she's like, well, there's this elephant. Elephant? She says, yeah, I just need to know, like, if she's ready to go. And I'm like, what elephant? Where? And she told me, and I was like, oh my God, I have been there. I have walked by this elephant dozens of times. And here, all like 10 years later, I'm talking to it. And so I started connecting with the elephant, and this woman has worked at the zoo for a couple decades, I believe. And so she and this elephant have quite the bond. And so when I connected with the elephant understood that there was a purpose to her being in captivity. She understood that her job was to teach. And that was what was so amazing is, again, there was no blame. Why am I here? It was, I understand that I am supposed to help people. I understand that my job is to teach people about creatures like me. She had a wonderful bond with my client. And in fact, she wanted to stay around as long as possible to be with her. And the wonderful thing that I thought was such a gift, and I don't think it happens all the time, is that she had her for at least 20 years. But no, she wasn't ready to go yet, but she seemed to understand. She was getting sensitive in her older age with her ears, but she seemed to understand like what her purpose was. Um and there was a little bit of, yeah, like I wish I was, in the savannah or whatever, but it wasn't like, again, this heavy, how dare you, human, how dare you. It was very much like, there's a few things I'd like, and she made a request for, I forget if it was just being gentle on her nails or something, but it wasn't, again, there wasn't a blame. It was a real gratefulness of the bond that she had with the owner. Yeah.
I've ridden elephants at zoos and whatnot, and I would love to get. I mean, I feel bad for the elephant at that point, but I would love to meet one and freaking like actually be able to like connect with it for more than like 30 seconds of going around in a circle.
20 years ago, I was told by a well-known psychic that the elephants were my spirit animal. And I remember, or spirit totem, like animal totem. And I remember going, what the hell? Like, what? An elephant, me? And they were like, no. Like, elephants are highly, highly bonded with their families. They're highly emotional. When they get angry, they can knock down trees, like when they're upset, but they definitely have this innate emotional understanding. And so to me, what was really cool about working with this elephant is, again, just all of the connections to get to me working with it. The fact that I had met this elephant before, it's just like, it was clearly meant to be. And then to feel this connectivity that this elephant had with not just my client, but with understanding, okay, I need to maybe bend down a little bit more for the kids. I know that certain people I'm going to back up with. Maybe certain people don't give off the energy, but her even being aware of an energy was so cool. And it makes me wonder, and I've never done a savannah, like a safari, but it would make me wonder about if I would assume, just based on that experience, that if with people on safaris, there's got to be certain energies that people take on safari, and hence the different types of experiences they have, right? But the fact that she was so aware of that, it's cool. So that's my elephant story.
Which we do to wrap this up, but I would love to have you back for part 2 sometime, because I feel like there's so many more stuff. And we didn't even touch on a lot of paranormal topics, so we could always touch on those too. Definitely would love to have you back on. But tell my audience where they can find you, where they can see your content. Just basically promote yourself to the fullest.
Sure, but as long as we don't talk about Jesus. If you want to talk about Jesus, I'm down. And that's an
inside joke, folks. That's an inside joke.
So no, so you can reach me at my name, which is nancymello.com, NancyMello.com. Instagram, I do free questions on Friday night. Check me out. I do go very fast, but it's Nancy Mello Official. Remember, it's just Mello, MELO. On TikTok, it's nancy.mello. So if you want to see videos with the silky chickens or me telling stories like that, check out the TikTok, of course, because it's all videos. But yeah, say hi. Feel free to follow me. And no, I'd love to come back and chat more.
Definitely have you back on. My listeners know where they can find me. I'll put in my pre-recorded clip where you can find me at the end of this. But I want to thank Nancy for coming on. It's been an amazing time, and I wish we had a little more time, but I got other obligations I have to go to. But we will have you back on, definitely, because you were entertaining as could be, and your stories I can listen to all day. So
well, thank you so much. I love talking about this stuff, because again, like, ghosts and all this stuff. I mean, this is my wheelhouse, and my regular life working with clients, they don't want to hear about the ghost stories. So I love being able to share it. So thanks for having me on to share it.
Oh, my pleasure. And we'll definitely get you back on maybe towards the end of March or something. We'll see. But
Sounds good. Sounds good.
thank you for coming on once again. And to all my listeners, I'll see you in half a week. Have a good week. Have a good half week, folks.